In this video, we're going to go over how you can use context in your applications to achieve some really powerful results for showing your data. So in front of me, what I've prepared is a data store containing some mock data to do with a company. So we've got a department, and in our department, we've got information such as the name of the department, the head of the department, number of employees, the annual budget, as well as a reference to any employees. We can then step out, look at our other table, which is a list of addresses. And then we have a user profile table, which is going to include all of our people. And again, you've got links to those addresses. So we've got some data that we can play with. So let's step into the app designer to work out how we could actually use those relations and context to achieve some really powerful results. So on this page here, we have my main homepage, and it's fairly simple at the moment, but all I really want to achieve is I want to be able to show a list of all of my departments and how I can achieve that. So to achieve that, let's get a repeating layout. So I've already got one on the page here, and come into its properties. So we can see the first thing in the top of the properties for the repeating layout is a data source. So this is asking, what information am I actually going to be using to feed the repeating layout? For example, if I'm showing a table, which table am I going to be actually relating it to? So I can click on the Datashift button, come over to Data Store, select Employee Data, which is the name of my data store we just had a look at, and I can then select my department table, and we can set a limit on this. So I'm going to set this to 10,000, just so there's always going to be plenty of information available for it to pull. And so now we can see a few other options appeared, but we don't need to worry about these for this particular video. All we need to worry about right now is actually putting things inside of our repeating layout so that for each item in this table, and if we hover over this data chip, we get a little bit of a preview as to that it's actually got some information it can show. So we'll say no department information available, and we'll start building our application. So what I've done is inside of my repeating layout, I have a flex. That flex is acting as a container for a bunch of other little pieces. So within that flex, I am then placing in a little box for each of the pieces of information I want to display. So and then within each of those boxes, I have a text component. So in this one, for example, I can open it up. I can click on variable, and what I can actually do is I can access the information I want to display. So the way that this works is the repeating layout is interacting with the table, and then the text component is interacting with the instance of a particular item. So in each row, you might have a name, a first name, a last name, and then you've got some other information. You might say, I want to be interacting with the first name in this box for every item that will be displayed. So hopefully this will make more sense as we go. I can select context, click on variable, and then we can see each of the items that we actually have access to. So each of the columns inside of our table that we've related to the repeating layout. So for me, I'm going to be selecting name as my first one, click insert, and you can see that the name of this department is procurement. We can come over to the next one. We can then say we want the department head in this box. And we can add all our other pieces of information here as well. And the nice thing here is that you don't need to expose all the information if you don't want to. So in this instance, there's no real benefit to us exposing, the annual budget, but if we wanted to, we could. So let's have a little preview with those simple pieces of information that we've related. If I click on preview, you can see that what it's done is for each of those items, it has actually shown that particular row's information as it's gone through the repeating layout. Fantastic. This is a great first step. Let's say we want to take this a little bit further, and we want to combine this with some of the other things we've learned. So if you know how to use IPL, then that will allow you to achieve some fairly interesting goals as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a button to this last one. And what I want this button to do is whenever I click on it, we want it to show this other page I've prepared called employee information. So we can call this one employees. Style it to my liking. Wonderful. And then we can open up the events page to interact with the IPL for this particular app component. So whenever it's clicked, I want it to redirect to my other page. Cool. And I'm going to open it in a modal, so it's a little pop-out window. We can test this, and wonderful. I've not got any information on that page yet, but we're going to get to that. Fantastic. So let's make this a bit smarter, shall we? Let's come over to our employee information page, and here we can actually use the idea of a dynamic page. So as we can already infer from looking at this page and how we've set it up so far, for each of the items in our list, we're going to want to show a different selection of employees depending on who is in that department, right? So to achieve this, we can dynamically change our employees modal page based on the context we provide it from this page. So we can pass over some information and say, this is the procurement department, and within that department, I want to look at this list of people. So how do we do that? So we can come over, we can go back to our employee information page, and first thing to do is to make this page a little bit smarter. We can come up to page settings, and you can either do that here, or you can make this change in the overview screen in page settings here. We can come to the bottom, and we can see there's the option for static page, or what we're after, which is dynamic page. Select our data source, which is just saying, you're going to provide me a unique identifier that's going to tell me to look in a particular table. Which table do you want me to look at? And in our case, we're saying, oh, we're actually going to be providing you with the department, and then we're going to be dipping into a particular part of the department table. So we want to select our department table. And in this case, we're only going to be interested in one row at a time. And the way that we're going to be making sure it's unique is by using the ID column, which is always going to be provided when you're creating a table in Tocker. We click update, and so now this page will change what it's going to display based on being fed with an ID for the department table. So we're saying in the department table, look at this one particular row and then use that information to actually change what you display. So let's link up our pages. Coming back to our home page, coming back to our redirect, we can now see that because we've made the page dynamic, it's asking us for an ID. And again, we can use context to actually do some fairly intelligent things here. We can come into the context, and what we're doing is we're dipping back into the repeating layout. So the repeating layout has limited down to this row. That row has an ID, and we can then pass that ID in IPL over to our redirect page. And so now, if we were to click on employees, it's going to open up employee data, and this modal actually has information about that particular row. So let's actually display that information now that we've got all this playing nicely. So what I want to show is I want to show the employee data for that particular department. I can come back to this repeating layout on this page, which we haven't configured yet. Select data source. And actually, this time, we're not going to be pulling from the data store because we want to only pull a subset of information. And we've already put some work into limiting the information that we're going to be displaying. So we're going to come over to context, variable, and now you can click on the employees. Click insert. And now in this repeating layout, it will actually only show the employees of a particular department. Give it a little message just in case there's one that hasn't got, someone makes a new department and doesn't have any employees yet. And I'm going to go through and actually set up this table a little bit more like we had the other one. And again, just highlighting that I'm actually going to be dipping into context for my repeating layout. And when I do, you can start to see anything that we've provided the page. So at the bottom with this little page icon is everything that we're pulling directly from this dynamic page that we're getting from our department ID that we're passing over. And everything at the top is going to be from any components that will be providing us further context. So such as the repeating layout, which is already dipping into information and therefore can share that with anything that is a child of it. Awesome. So now you can see I've actually gone through and I've added a first name, last name, a phone number, and an email for this particular set of employees. So let's go back to our home page and test everything out and make sure it's working as we expect it to. So we can see that in the procurement department, we have one employee and it's Oliver Brown. In our research and development department, we have Jack Wilson. We've then got Jack Wilson also in the IT department. In the marketing department, we have Oliver and Emily. And wonderful. It seems to be working as intended. So hopefully this provides you a really quick means to see how you can actually link data together and how you can use context to actually dip into particular pieces of information that you want to be displaying in your applications.